Right, so I chose the Twisted Path Cipher, Polybius Cipher, and Visionaire Cipher. I did the Twisted Path and the Polybius honestly because I looked at the scrambling with the keyword and didn't really have a solid understanding of how to do that, and then I was left with the other two. But I decided to challenge myself on the Visionaire Cipher because it looked harder than the keyword cipher. So I'm just going to go through project by project and kind of reflect on it, I guess. The rail cipher was pretty difficult because I didn't have well, it was my first time experimenting with arrays seriously, and I got a lot of array overflow errors, and finding out that that the dot length function gave you one more than the cipher could actually take. It took me about half an hour to figure out, and once I figured that out, I definitely had an easier time. For the Twisted Path cipher, I ended up having to have, or no, sorry, for the real cipher, I ended up having to have a different decoding code if the message length was odd as opposed to even, which I'm pretty sure you could probably make one code somehow, but I couldn't figure it out, and so I just decided to go with the path of least resistance. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how it came out. The Twisted Path cipher, I'd say, was probably the hardest one that I had to do. Once again, to decode, I had to have a different code if there were an odd number of columns as opposed to an even number of columns. Whereas the rail cipher, I knew I was going to have to do that. The Twisted Path cipher, I was just kind of running into errors, seemingly randomly, checking different messages, but I finally figured out that it was because it was the difference between an odd column number and an even column number. So I would fix it one way and it would work for one message, it wouldn't work for the other message. I would change it back and it would work for half the messages as well. So then I ended up just saying that my initial fix was if it was odd, and how I was doing it was if it was even. I'm almost positive that there's some way to do it so that it works for both. But once again, it just it turned out that I had made two different programs for two different lengths, so I decided to keep it that way. I'd say this is probably my messiest one. It probably does a lot of unnecessary things, but overall, it works great. I actually did the Polybius cipher first right after the rail cipher because it seemed like an easy thing to do, and I was really sick of struggling with the rail cipher, and yeah, I think that's probably my most elegant one. It ended up being quite simple. There were, I had a triple nested for loop, which took a little figuring out, but otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. The Visionaire cipher was pretty straightforward as well. I didn't run into any major problems besides that I would add, when I added the message number to the keyword number, sometimes I would get a number over 26, so the program wouldn't know where to look in the alphabet for that number, and that took me quite a while to figure out. And the same for decoding, you would get a number sometimes less than 0, and I could not understand how that was happening for the longest time. I had system printouts at almost every step just to try to understand what was happening, and finally I just had the program printing enough at every step that I finally kind of understood what the program was trying to do, and I understood what I had done poorly with it. Pretty satisfied with it, and this was one of the ones where usually when I was printing spaces, I had a for loop that printed characters, and then sometimes I would just print a space in between characters. This was the first one where I actually stored the message all in a string, and so I had to insert spaces inside of that string, and so I was using message substring, which I had a bit of trouble with but otherwise figured it out. So yeah, it was interesting to learn how to insert a character inside of an already existent string. Pretty happy with how it turned out. It seems to be the simplest way I could think of doing it, and it does not matter the message length. So yeah, that's my project.